today we begin our factoring journey. We already talked about GCFs and we're going to be using that a lot, but today we're going to be dealing with factoring by grouping. Factoring by grouping means we're going to start with 4 or more terms. Guys, we're only doing 4 because we're starting off small. 4 or more terms, so please make sure you understand that if you're going to do 4 terms, this is the process you will use. So here we go. So when you see a problem like this, the very first thing you're going to do is look for a GCF. Okay? Oh, good. So GCF, greatest common factor for all 4 of them. You're going to see if anything divides into 3, 12, 2, and 8. The easiest way to do it is just like we did before. Look at the 2. That's the smallest number here. Does 2 divide into 3, 12, and 8? All has to go into all of them, guys. No. Because of that, there's no number that will go into all of them. Is there a variable that's common to all of them? No. So at that point, you're done with looking for a GCF for that part. We're going to do it again in a minute, but that's for that part, for the whole thing. The second step is going to be to deal with your grouping. So you're going to group the first 2 together, and you are going to group the second 2 together. So group would be step 2. You're going to group these things together. The reason we do that is to break it down into smaller pieces that we can do GCFs from. Guys, now look. What will go into 3 and into 12? 3. Okay. And then what is the lowest power on the x for both of them? X squared. That's your GCF for these 2. You're going to write it in front of your parentheses just like we did on the last test. A lot of y'all did very well on the GCF part. It was actually good because it's what we do a lot of here. And then you've got to reduce these. Guys, 3 divided by 3 is going to just cancel out. And then you're going to subtract the exponents on the x. So if you subtract those, you're going to get x to the 3 minus 2 would be x to the first, but we write it just as x. Minus on the next one, 12 divided by 3 is going to put it at 4 out in front. And then guys, what happens to the x squareds? They just cancel out. And so that's what it looks like. Now we've done one GCF, now we need to do it for the other 2. What goes into 2x and into 8? 2, just a GCF of 2. Now listen to me, this is a big concept right here. Listen, this is a positive 2. When I write it, I got to put plus 2. I'm separating it. Do not put it as multiplication in the middle there. It will mess you up. Plus 2. And then you're going to divide that out. Guys, what happens to the 2's here? They cancel, and the only thing left is x. And then 8 divided by 2 is going to be 4. Oh, look, guys, do you see that you have a factor in common? Do you see these 2 are the exact same thing? We are going to factor them out. We're going to do GCF again. They are a GCF. They are going to be written in the very front and the parentheses, and it's going to be x minus 4. So step 3, once you've taken the group, we did our GCF again for each piece. And then the next thing is going to be to take out common factor. Just so we're really clear what we're doing. We're taking out the common factor and putting it in front. We're going to take out the common factor and put it in front. See, they both have an x minus 4. In the other parentheses, which is going to go right next to it, because it's going to be multiplied now, because we've already taken these out. These are both multiplied times these things. In the other parentheses, you're going to put everything you don't have in a parentheses yet. So you're going to put the 3x squared in your parentheses, and you're going to put the plus 2 in your parentheses. It's going to be 3x squared plus 2. Guys, do y'all understand that's the problems that we had on our last test? That we just worked backwards to get to the point that we were on our last test? It was multiplying binomials. Now we've done the opposite and we've worked backwards to get 2 binomials multiplied together. That's what we're trying to do, is get it to break down until everything is broken apart instead of like this. So, questions, concerns, anything about it? Oh, for our last step, just like take out the common factor and then put leftovers. That's the easiest way for people to remember. Put leftovers in other parentheses. Put leftovers in other parentheses, just so that we have all the steps written out all the way through. GCF, group, GCF, take out the common factor and put in front, put leftovers in other parentheses. That's like breaking it down as far as I can break it down, guys. That way you have words that make it make sense to you, steps that you can go through every single time. This is only going to be the process when we have how many terms though, guys? 4 terms. This is what we do when we have 4 terms. There's much easier ways to do this when you have 3 and 2. We'll talk about that later. For 4, this is what we do. Okay. Questions, concerns? Anybody still writing? We good? Okay, here we go. For this next one, look at all these. Do they have, well, first of all, can they have a number in common if there's no number here? No. Can they have a variable in common if there's no variable here? No. So the first thing we're going to do, since there's no GCF, is to group the first 2 and the second 2. Ooh, you got to look at this, guys. Do you see we have a positive and a positive here, and in this one we have a negative and a negative? So when we factor out the number here, what kind of number are we going to need to factor out of this? A negative, because we need a negative to come out in order to get that to turn into a positive and a positive. We need them to match, guys. That's the whole idea, is to trying to get them to match. So here we go. What is the GCF for these first 2? It's only a variable. What's the power on that variable? X squared. Good. It's x. It's the smaller. It's always the smaller of whatever's there, guys. So you put that x squared out in front, and then you divide that. When you divide that, you subtract exponents. X to the third divided by x to the second is going to leave you x to the first, which we just write as x, plus 5 doesn't have anything to cancel with, but the x squareds cross each other out. So it's left like this. For this next one, I already told you, if it's positive, positive, and the second one is negative, negative, you're going to have to divide by a negative on both of them to turn it into a positive, positive. You want them to match, guys. You want the signs to match. What number goes into 4 and into 20? 4, and so we're going to do negative 4 underneath each one of them. Guys, that means when I write it down here, instead of writing plus 4, I'm now going to write minus 4. Guys, negatives cross out, the 4's cross out. What's the only thing left here? X. X is the only thing that's going to be there. Then on the next one, the negatives cross out, so I've got to put a plus sign. And 20 divided by 4 is going to put us at 5. 20 divided by 4. Guys, do you see they matched now? That's the whole point, is to get them to match. We have a common factor now that we're going to take and we're going to put out in front. So this common factor is going to be written out in front. So you write the x plus 5 out in front. And then what am I going to put in the other parentheses? X squared, x2, that's fun. X squared minus 4. There you go. Now, I'm going to put a little star beside this because this will factor more. We'll talk about that later on. But for now, all we're doing is factoring by grouping. So that actually factors into the difference of perfect squares, which we talked about in the last half. It's one of those special cases. But we're not going to deal with that until the next, like when we get to that section. All I'm concerned about is you being able to do the factoring with the grouping. Questions? Okay, let's keep going. Oh, bigger numbers now. I bet this has a GCF. What's the smallest number out of all these? So 24. So 1 and 24. What are the other factors of 24? 2 and 12. 3 and 8. And then 4 and 6. Perfect. The reason I do that in order, guys, is so I can go from the highest one down to the lowest because we're looking for the greatest common factor. So, will 24 divide into 60? You may need to grab your calculators. No, doesn't work. Does 12 go into 60? Yes. Does 12 go into 36? Does 12 go into 90? It doesn't on that one. You sure? Okay, just checking. Okay, try 8. Well, no, 8 doesn't go into 60. I know that one. So 8 doesn't go into 60. Well, 6 goes into 60. That works. 6 goes into 36. Does 6 go into 90? Okay, so there's our GCF number-wise. So we're going to put a 6 on all 4 of these. Guys, this has a GCF for all 4 of them. That means you're going to have a 6 out in front of everything the whole time. This is going to mess some of y'all up because you're going to make it disappear. You can't do that. This is a GCF for the whole thing. So that GCF for the whole thing is going to go out in front. We're going to divide it out. That's going to give us 4x to the third plus 10x squared plus 36 divided by 6 would be 6x. What's 90 divided by 6? 15. We already have our parentheses on the outside. I'm just going to put my parentheses on the middle to separate and group those two groups together. Yes, sir?
Don't you put the x
in front of the 6. I'm not factoring anything from individual pieces yet. I haven't grouped anything together at this point. All I'm doing is taking a GCF out of the whole thing. And since they don't all have a variable, there's no x on this 90, I can't do that yet. That's a very good question. I can't do that till later. This is just a GCF for the whole thing. This is the first one we've had that's had a GCF for all 4 numbers. Good question. Right, once we have all the GCF taken out, that's 6, out of all the terms, we're going to put our 2 parentheses in the middle. And our 2 parentheses in the middle are going to give us GCFs. Guys, listen to me. You've got to put the 6 in the parentheses. We're still going to have another parentheses right there with a GCF in front of it. It's going to mess. That 6 has got to stay there. This is going to stay in front the whole time. Then we do the problem just like we did on all the rest of them. What goes into 4 and 10? What is the biggest number that goes into 4 and 10? 2. What is the lowest power on the x's that I can put here? X squared. Put another opening parentheses. Opening parentheses. We're not closing one. Opening. And then we're going to divide both of these by 2x squared. So to divide, guys, you don't have to draw it underneath there if you don't want to. If you've got it to where you can divide it in your head, great. But most of y'all are going to make a mistake if you do that. I suggest you draw it. Please listen to me. Sometimes a little extra writing will get you a much better grade. 4 divided by 2 is going to give you 2. And then x to the third divided by x squared is going to be x to the first. Plus 10 divided by 2 is going to be 5. And the x squareds cross out. Close your parentheses. Okay, the next thing I've got to do is just like before, I've got to find a GCF for both these. What goes into 6 and into 15? 3. So what am I going to put in the middle right here? Not just 3. What do I write there? Plus 3. There's no x in common. So it's just 3 out in front, but you got to put a plus 3 in front of it. And then it's going to be 6 divided by 3 is 2. Put the x beside it. And then 15 divided by 3 is going to be 5. Now, guys, look at me. I have a parenthesis. I'm going to highlight because you need to see this. I got a parenthesis here and here that's closed. That's good. I got a parenthesis here and here that's closed. But I need to close this big parentheses at the beginning. To do that, I've got to put a second parentheses at the very end. It matters. It does make a difference in what the value of the problem is, how it's worked out. So you've got to have that at the end. So guys, what's going to still stay out in front? 6. And then my 2 parentheses are going to be the one that's in common. Well, the one that's in common is going to be the, what do they have in common, guys? 2x plus 5. That goes in the first one. And then the second one is everything else. Well, what else do we have left? We have this 2x squared and this plus 3. It's everything that's not in a parentheses yet. So 2x squared plus 3. Now guys, listen to me very carefully. I just want to make sure you're clear on this. You know that in multiplication the order does not matter. You do have to have the coefficient out front, but it doesn't matter which one of these two parentheses you have first. You're going to see the key. They love to put them different ways every time. Okay? It doesn't matter as long as you have this in one parentheses and this in another parentheses. That's all that matters with the 6 out in front. Okay, questions, concerns, anything before I keep going? I think I've got 2 more. How many more? 2. Okay, here we go. Oh, anybody still writing? I'm sorry. We're good? Okay, here we go. Guys, you should be able to tell me this immediately. These numbers should be easy. What goes into all of these? A 5. So take and divide all of them by 5. That means I'm going to have a 5 out in front, a parentheses, and then I'm going to simplify all these. When I simplify all these 5's cancel out, and I'm left with just x to the third plus 15 divided by 5 is going to put me at 3x squared minus the 5's cancel out here, and all I've got is x. And then minus 15 divided by 5 is going to be minus 3. Okay, once you take out the GCF for all 4 of them, that's number 1. Step 2 is to group them together. So step 2, we're going to put those parentheses in the center. You already have the ones on the outside when you do the GCF, so all you need is the ones in the middle. Okay, guys, what is the GCF between x to the third and 3x squared? What would the GCF be? X squared. You can't have a number because there's no number in common other than 1. 1 doesn't help you. We'll talk about that one and how to deal with it when it does come up. So we put that x squared out in front. You're going to open a parentheses. And then you're going to simplify each one of these, guys. X to the third divided by x squared is going to leave you x. It's x to the first, but we don't write to the first, so it's just x. And then on this one, the 3 is the only thing left when the x squareds cancel out. Ooh, guys, here's one of them. Here's a reason that you got to pay attention to this. Guys, first of all, this one goes positive, positive, so this one needs to go positive, positive. In order to make this go positive, positive, what are you going to have to divide both of them by? A negative. That's the first thing. And then what's the only thing they have in common? 1. That is it. Negative 1 is going to be your GCF. If there is nothing else, then the only thing you can take out is 1. We're going to put a minus 1 right here, and we're going to start our parentheses. We're going to open another parentheses. The negatives cancel, and x divided by 1. Guys, anything over 1 is just that number, so it's just going to be x. And then again, the negatives cancel, so instead of a minus in the middle, it's now going to have a plus in the middle. And 3 divided by 1 is going to be 3. What am I missing on the end? Another parentheses to close out that big set. And here we go. What's in common is going to be this x plus 3. So we keep that 5 out in front. We write the x plus 3 in the first parentheses. What's left over goes in the other parentheses. What would go in the other parentheses, guys? X squared minus 1. Again, I'm going to put a star by this. This is the difference of perfect squares. You would keep going for one more step on this. We don't know how to do that yet, but I'm just putting it there that you would not be finished on a normal day. Okay. Normally this is taught last, but we have found that it's much better to teach this first. This gets really confusing if you've done all the other stuff, all the shortcuts first, and people don't do well, so we always do this one first. Okay. Anything about that one before we do our last one? This is the first one that's going to have a GCF like this, so for all of them. Anything before we go? Okay. Okay, guys, here it is. Last one. All 4 of these can divide by something. What can all 4 of these divide by for a GCF? 4. And then what's the power on the x? Is it just 1? So x, and x. That 4x is going to go out in front, and then we're going to simplify all these. The 4's cancel out, and then 4x to the 4th and x to the 1st. You're going to subtract those exponents. Guys, when you divide, you subtract the exponents on those like bases. So we got an x here and x here. 4 minus 1 is going to leave you x to the 3rd. Minus 8 divided by 4 is going to be 2. X to the what? 2nd. Because we do 3 minus 1, and 3 minus 1 gives us 2x to the 2nd. In the middle here, sorry, I went ahead and wrote my parentheses. I apologize. I'm so used to writing them when I group. Sorry, we'll do that in a second. It's going to be plus 12 divided by 4 is going to put us at 3. And then what do you put on the x? Just x. Good. And then minus, what's on the end, guys? 6 by itself. Why is 6 not got an x after it? Because they cancel out. Perfect, guys. Right? Then you're going to group the first two groups. Guys, we're going through steps. Number 1, we factored out of GCF. Number 2, we're setting up the grouping. Number 3, we're going to take GCFs out of each one of these individual ones. So we're going to keep the 4x out in front. We're going to put the parentheses. We're going to find a GCF for both these. No number goes into both of them, but there is a variable that will go into both of them. What's the power on that x? Squared. That is the lowest power between them. So x squared is going to go out in front, and then when you divide it, 3 minus 2 would leave you x to the 1st, which is just x, guys. Minus the x squareds cancel out, and you're going to get 2. For the next one, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take out a GCF. Guys, it goes positive, negative, positive, negative. They match. You don't need to take out a negative when they match. It's already got it. Look, this one is a positive. This one is a negative. This one is a positive. This one is a negative. They already match pattern-wise. I don't need to take a negative out of this. So what am I going to take out of both of these? What goes into 3x and into 6? 3. When I write that 3 in the middle, I've got to write a plus 3. It's positive, that's why it's plus. And then I'm going to simplify that. The 3's cancel out, and I get just x. And then 6 divided by 3 is going to be 2. I need 2 parentheses on the end to close that parentheses and the big parentheses. It does matter, guys. I keep trying to explain that concept matters. You got to have that. Then at the end, all we do is write the 4x out in front. What goes in our first parentheses? What's common to both of them? What's the same? X minus 2. What goes in the other parentheses? Perfect. There we go. And that's your answer. Okay, guys, bless you. We have time to work today in class, and it's not a long worksheet. And I want you to be able to ask questions, so I'm going to get you started.